What's up, guys? Have you been practicing your ABCs? Well, what I really mean is practicing your ABCs in Illustrator using the pen tool to make an A. All right, I think this is a really good exercise because we're using the pen tool and there's no curves. One important detail is that I'm actually closing my path, meaning that my last click is back on the same point as my first click. All right, there's the letter A. The letter B is a little more complicated because there are some curves. Clicking. And please watch how I kind of ignore curves at first. See how there's no curves there? No curves at all. But I'll hover over a point, and then while holding down Option with my other hand, if you're on a PC, hold down Alt, holding down Option, and then when I click and drag, I'm dragging up to create the curve. If I drag down, I'll twist my curve there. So I'm dragging up. I need another bump down here. Hover over the sharp point that I want to be curved. You'll notice that the cursor has a pen icon on it with a minus sign. You know, I could delete it. I could delete a point if I wanted to. I'm going to hit Command Z to undo. Instead of minusing that point, I'm going to hold down Option. My cursor changes to a little caret. Click and drag upwards, and then I get a bump. Okay. Usually for the letter B, the top bump is going to be a little smaller than it's a little bit shorter than the bottom bump and smaller. If I hover over this mask point that defines the bump, and I click, I'll end up deleting that mask point and then the bump goes away. I want to just move it. I could use the white direct selection tool to move it, but then I have to waste time moving my mouse all the way over. So why don't I just stay in the pen tool, hold down Command or Control if you're on a PC, hold down Command or Control, and my pen tool will temporarily switch to a direct selection tool, and then I can drag this point over. Okay, initially when I clicked and dragged, all the mask points were selected, so I had to click once to let Illustrator know I only wanted this one point, and then click again to move it. Okay, so that looks better. All right, there's my A, B. Now time for a letter C. The letter C has a more difficult curve to draw, but please watch how I make the letter C. Starting with angles. And then of course closing the path. All right, that's one way to get started making a letter C, and then you guys remember the exercise where I would hold down Option and add curves. Okay. While I'm adding these curves, I might decide that I don't really need certain points, like this sharp point here might be unnecessary. So what would happen if I just hovered over with the pen tool, see the minus sign, and then click to get rid of it? That actually looks okay. Okay, look at how I'm just making some slight adjustments. And you guys decide how you want your letter C to look. All right, practicing my ABCs. My letter A is really, really big. All right, what's missing? Well, there should be a hole in the letter A. Let's take a look at our Layers tab. A, B, C. Okay, maybe I'll change the order of these layers. Don't forget, you can also use Command bracket to change the order. All right, ABCs. And now I'm going to just use the pen tool and create a triangle in the middle here. Closing my path. Sometimes it's useful to change the color of this triangle. All right, it's time to use the Pathfinder tab to cut a hole. I'll be using the minus button, okay? Specifically, The minus button is used to subtract a shape from another shape. The minus button is in my Pathfinder tab on the top row, second from the left. If your Pathfinder tab isn't visible, go to the window menu, and everything's in alphabetical order here, so look for the letter P. There's Pathfinder, and of course my Pathfinder window pops up, and I've got a lot of tools here represented by icons. Okay, here's that triangle. You gotta remember to select objects. You have to click in the empty space next to this appearance dot. Okay, before making a hole in something, you have to think about it as making a relationship between two objects. I want to create a relationship between this blue triangle and the red letter A underneath it, so I've got to select both of these objects, and I'm clicking in the empty space next to the dot, holding shift to select two objects, and then use that minus sign. Boom. That letter A is now named a compound path because it's the result of two shapes having a relationship with each other. Holding down spacebar and scrolling down. Time to make a hole in the letter B. Let's make another triangle here. Not really necessary to make a different color, but I'm just doing it so that as a teacher, it's more obvious to my students that there are two different shapes here. Holding down Option to create a curve. Okay. And I could pop a hole in it in the letter B right now by holding shift and selecting two shapes, but I think I'm gonna pop the hole out a little bit faster. I'm gonna streamline this by making both of my shapes first and then using the minus button. Okay, so I'm gonna select those two holes, those two blue holes, holding shift, clicking in the empty space next to the dot on the right side of my screen here in the Layers tab. And look at how I've selected three objects, and the red letter B is on the very bottom. Now I'm ready to hit minus, and you can create a subtraction with multiple shapes at the same time. All right, I've practiced my ABCs.